All right, welcome back to Silence is Canceled. I'm here with Dr. Jacqui Mack-Harris. Sometimes I just like to say that. It's just fun.
Sid. I like to hear it, so it's all right.
I mean, you did the work, so
it was a lot of work.
Yeah. So we, obviously, you probably know this because you're listening. We're part of an organization called the Way Thru, trying to bridge that gap of mental and emotional wellness here in this crazy, wonderful place we call Earth. Yeah. Yes. And we thought we would talk about ADHD today. What are we talking about? I'm sorry. What? It's something that at least for the last, 20 years, at least in my experience, has been just, it's like the default thing. And I believed it for a while. And then suddenly I was like, I think we're overusing this. Maybe we're not. But I feel like, because I worked in this home for kids, troubled kids who had been removed from their home. This is all tragedy stories. I can't even begin to, I'm sure you can begin to imagine some of the circumstances where you would remove a 7-year-old from their home and put them in a care facility with other 7-year-olds who also have equally. It's not a good idea. Anyway, but like all of them, ADHD, along with a whole list of other, things that they've got going on. Yeah. And I myself have often wondered, do I have this? Am I like, and then I hear other people. So what is going on with ADHD?
Yeah. Well, I have so many ideas about ADHD. So one of the reasons why it took me so long to get my doctorate degree is I have ADHD.
Certainly not.
Of course I do, yes. But I think of it as a superpower. So I don't necessarily look at ADHD the way that a lot of people do in terms of it being a disorder. It just really means a person's brain is just wide open. We have a hard time prioritizing. We have a hard time with executive functioning, out of sight, out of mind. And so we can be messy and start projects and not finish them. I think it's evolutionary that we start to see more and more and more. And we will evolutionarily create more people with more differences in order to meet the needs of society. Because the people with ADHD are, if we don't cripple them, quite capable of doing, Tesla-like stuff, right? People whose brains are neurodivergent can get some pretty amazing things done, but neurotypicals, which are that standard person who can prioritize, who can focus on one thing at a time, they want the standard. They want, this is the way you should behave in school. This is the way you should behave professionally. This is what it means to be a success. And the person with ADHD, the brain doesn't function that way. So the person who is neurotypical feels that there's a disorder. Something must be wrong with you because you can't focus on one thing at a time. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to not just be so focused on your little box that you don't see anything else, because that's really kind of why we're in the crippling circumstances that we're in, is because as Americans, we can sometimes tend to get in our own little boxes and not look outside, where people with ADHD are so outside of the box that they make other people anxious, uncomfortable, frustrated. And so there are some things that we can do to help with that. But I think that one of the most important things is that we would be less afraid of that term. When I work with parents who have kids or spouses who have ADHD, one of the first things we have to do is unravel their concept of what it means to have ADHD, that they're dumb, they can't accomplish anything, they're not going to be successful. So we reverse all that. And I just usually say, use your power for good, not evil. You are capable of far more than the neurotypical. So I expect far more from you. And then we start to move from that perspective. Now, sometimes you're going to need some extra accommodations, because since you're easily distractible, you might need more time to get certain things done. because it's harder for you to focus. Or some people will choose to take a medication that helps them focus during their school day or their work day. And then maybe give themselves the freedom to just kind of, wing it and ad lib life from the time they get off from work or get out of school once the things, the homework and things like that have to be done are done. The reason why some people will choose to take medication is because the part of the brain that focuses on whatever that assignment is, the higher learning part of the brain, the cerebral cortex, that part of the brain is being ignored because the other side of the brain is picking up on everything, right? All the squirrel moments. And medication just kind of gets you focused into that one place. Most of us can hear everything that's going on around us. There's birds outside, there's a car, and still handle what's in front of us. It's multitasking. So yes, I do think that there are a lot of ADHD diagnoses out there. I think that we have more ADHD in response to the changes that have been happening in humanity. And so we're expected to do more.
Right.
We're expected to work 50 hours a week. We're expected to get good exercise and have our kids be involved in 20 activities a week and show up at church and be at church 3 times a week. And right, all these things that require us to be so busy. It makes perfect sense to me that we've evolved to have more people who can tolerate that.
Yeah, because I find that most days I find myself just like there's so many directions that my mind is pulled, from the kids to the work to the the relationship with the wife to then all the things that have to be done to be alive, and the food and it's just look, all the little details and I'm complete. I'm and so
you're just running from one thing to the other without any thought in between.
Yeah, it's like
right? and that can be a problem.
I don't even have time to make those connections. And I think, at least for me, one of the downsides to that, to this sort of hustle and bustle way of life that we have, is that I'm not really paying attention to it. I'm just do. And one of the things I read recently was, at least for a lot of people like me, it's not that we don't have a good memory or that we can't remember. It's that we're not paying active attention, which is why I can set my hat down or my keys down, and literally 30 seconds later, I have no idea where I put it, because I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing at all. I'm on automatic pilot almost all day, every day. And that's fascinating. But it's also, for me, it's also fascinating that can be turned, as you said, into a superpower with the right tools.
Yep. If you learn how to use it.
Yeah. So as somebody listening to this, and hopefully there are ADHD people listening to this, although they may have tuned out already. It's been 8 minutes. I don't know. That might be too long.
Right.
I'm still here, so you guys can do it. What are some of those tools that are accessible to me right now? Like right now, let's say I don't have access to medication or to a therapist or whatever. But so what can I, how can I begin to start that process of focusing all this energy into a Tesla moment, into a sort of
yes, make something great out of it. So first of all, use your calendar.
You've already lost
calendar. Right? Calendar. What? They make these really helpful tiles to put on your keys. Now, you might not be able to get some of the techie kind of things that they have in place to help us. Listening to music, so headphones while you're doing your homework can help you focus on assignments, or while you're doing chores or anything that you need to get done you really don't want to do. Listen to some music that you really enjoy while you're doing this thing you don't want to do. most people can find a way to do that. And so for the parents out there who have been telling their kid, no, you cannot listen to music or put your headphones on while you're doing the dishes or your homework, you need to focus, stop. Because you are taking away a tool that could actually help them to be successful. So let them have their headphones. And that's a consistent request. Everybody that I know that has ADHD uses headphones.
That's really fascinating.
But for your,
because I have sort of an opposite thing that I do.
Okay.
I like to listen to music when I'm doing house stuff. But when I have to study or I have to actually do something, it has to be dead silent.
Dead silent.
If I have music on,
to remember
if I have
things,
music on, I will not pay attention. I will be listening to the music. It has to be classical music. But even then, I love music so much that I will get caught up listening to all the stuff Mozart is doing. And or jazz, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that drum part, I'll go back and rewind it, and it has to be dead.
You're a musician.
It has to be dead silent. As a musician, I cannot listen to music.
You can't use music.
Work. It's fascinating.
Yes, no, that makes sense because your brain then takes off and starts to go to work in the music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a similar process, right? So I put on, if I have a paper to write, I will put on the wildest hip hop. So Eminem is on my playlist to get the paper done. If you come in and you hear Eminem, you know I waited to the last minute to get this project done. And because there is so much going on that CD that the right side of my brain is busy. And so then I can just let the left side get this paper done. And so it's soothing. It's not necessarily something I'm paying attention to. It's comfort. It's a rhythm that keeps me motivated. So, typically, even at work, when I have to do like the students' hours right before they graduate, I'm sitting in the middle of the floor with all that paperwork with Eminem blaring at my Christian university because I got to get this done. And I need some help, and he's helpful. So whatever tools the person finds that works for them, right? So yes, music while you're cleaning, but if you have to study to remember something, you need silence. So if I'm studying and trying to memorize, I do need silence. Whereas my husband needs the television on, which that's weird to me. Yeah, and the TV, I'm going to listen to people talking. I talk for a living, so I couldn't study while listening to a book because I want to focus on the book. I'm listening to the book. But I could listen to a book while I'm doing a job that I used to do that was just kind of rote. And I was just it was repetitive on the computer. And so I'm listening to the book while I'm just doing this thing. And so letting your kid or your partner find what works for them. But we need timers because a lot of people with ADHD have trouble with time management because time doesn't function the same way inside of them. They get more things done than the neurotypical because they don't realize that they shouldn't be able to get all that stuff done in that time frame. But it does mess with them showing up places on time. So using a calendar, using a timer. If I don't have it on my calendar, I will not show up. I will forget as soon as the conversation is over. So I have to put it on my calendar. I have to check before I go to the store. Otherwise, I will just buy more because I don't see it in my brain as at the house. And so I need to look. It frustrates my family. We have far too many bottles of condiments and salad dressing.
That's right.
Like I'm like, oh, do we have enough ranch? We're going to have French fries. We must eat ranch, right? So then we just buy more. So I think there's a lot of things that we do with ADHD that can be helpful, that helps the whole family, but it can also be really frustrating. And so it can also be a team effort to manage some of those things. If you know your kid struggles to complete certain tasks, because when you have ADHD, if you hate it, you hate it. And it's almost impossible to get your mind to do the thing you don't want to do. And so we think they're being oppositional, they're defiant, they're difficult. And really the brain is telling them, no. And so as we get older and more mature, we learn how to overcome that and get it done anyway. And we have certain phrases that we say, yes, we do hard things. I know you don't want to do it. That's okay. You don't have to want to do it, but it's important that you do it anyway because you need this grade, right? So we might have to explain to a kid with ADHD why they need to do this thing because they don't want to do it and it doesn't make sense to them that it would be necessary. Because remember, they're paying attention to everything. So we've already made all these connections. And there's nothing in these connections that say this is going to benefit me. So I don't want to do it. So you might have to explain to me what the benefit of it is. And so we have to have a little more patience. But tools wise, it's different for most of us. We just have to figure out what is the system that works for us is trial and error. Some things that work for me don't work for my daughter. Some things that work for her don't work for me. Time management is not an issue for her. Being on time is critically important to her. Whereas for me, getting a lot of stuff done is more important. And that's a defining difference between the two of us. So we have some battles when we're trying to do things together.
But I'm really here.
Frustrate her.
You were supposed to be here an hour ago. But I'm here.
I'm here now. I'm here now.
We have to do this. So my son is 7, almost 7, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And we have to, so what we've learned is that you can't redirect him instantly. We have learned that. All you have to do is give him a 5-minute warning or a 10-minute warning. Say, hey, in 5 minutes, we're going to do this. And then 5 minutes later, he'll do it. But if I was to just grab him and say, let's go, I mean, the screams and the tears and because wherever he is, he is all in whatever world he's in that moment.
He's hyper focused on something,
whether it's playing, whether it's watching, whether it's now he's really into music, which is really cool. And so whatever he's doing, he has to be given. It doesn't matter what the time is, right? It could be 1 minute, it could be 5. It's just, hey, it's pretty soon you're going to have to switch forward. As long as he knows that in advance, he's okay.
Mm-hmm. So now I think that's important because there are parents out there who don't think that they should have to do that to their child because their child is the child and they're the adult. The child should just listen. And part of your frustration with your child is your inability to respect them as a human being. And you paid attention to the fact that your child is in the process of something. He's learning a new skill. He's working out a problem. He's thinking through something. He's enjoying something. He's in some experience. And to just come up and be like, come on, let's go, isn't something that we would tolerate as adults. So why do we think that children should have to tolerate it? So a lot of the things that we get frustrated with kids about, we bring on ourselves. Sometimes parents make parenting harder than it has to be. It was much easier for you to learn that he just needs a warning. That's just respectful. He's focused on something else. It's like I would say, hey, Sid, I need to talk to you about something. When's a good time?
Yeah.
Right? I wouldn't just walk in and expect you to stop what you're doing because I want to talk to you. Although some people do believe that they have a right to do that. But you found the solution to the problem. Give the kid a heads up.
Yeah.
And so that's what parents have to do. We need to pay more attention to our children and learn who they are. And they're all different. The way that I do things with my younger daughter is different than the way that I do things with my older daughter. The way that they manage me is different than the way that they manage their dad.
I know for me, the only thing that keeps me on track is a hard deadline. If I don't have this has to be done now, I will work on it forever. Especially coming from a video production background as well, you can edit something again and like all day long until just forever. I mean, there's always something to be tweaked. There's always something to be improved. But eventually you just have to be done.
Yeah. And I need deadlines too. So that was the hard thing about finishing dissertations.
There was no deadline.
There was no deadline. There was
whenever you feel like being
done. You get the work done, you get the research done, then you're done. So that was hard for me. I still struggle with deadlines, though, if I'm honest. I can have a deadline, and then I lie to myself in my calendar, and I give myself if it's due on the 31st, then I might put in my calendar that it's due on the 25th. To try to give myself some padding. And then the 31st, midnight, the day before it's due, I will have headphones on, and Eminem will be blaring, and I will be trying to get it done at the last minute, because procrastination is a huge
It's real. That's our kryptonite. Yeah. And it is for real. Yeah. Yeah. So what? Yeah.
But the superpower part, though, right? When you get hyper focused on something, you can create something incredible, because you see all these different parts of it, and you see it in different contexts, and you see different uses for whatever this tool is. And we can get really creative and really passionate. And when you get hyper focused on something, it's also very hard to pull away from it.
I will. Yeah. And it's funny because it applies to anything. Yeah. Like if I'm working on a paper that has no significance whatsoever, just to check off a box, when I get into it, I'm there. Yeah. And I'll see connections in that paper that I will not read in any of the other work that I read. I'm like, I'm always like, how come they didn't make those connections? I'm so confused. Like, it's such an obvious connection.
But you get so focused on it. So sometimes I have parents or spouses who are frustrated with their ADHD loved one, because sometimes they can focus and sometimes they can't. So they feel like, well, they choose when they want to focus. I used to be told I had selective hearing. It's not that I have selective hearing, but if I am focused on something, I am focused on it. I have a goddaughter who was my first encounter really with someone who had been diagnosed with ADHD, and she was the Tasmanian devil. Like, she just would be everywhere, and I'd be like, ah. But if you put her in front of a Disney movie, she would just stop and be frozen. And so that's how I babysat her, with Disney movies. But when I needed to get her attention, I would have to put my hand on her shoulder and say her name. And then she would turn to me, and then we could go do whatever. But until I touched her and spoke her name, I could be, go outside. Why are y'all in here? I could be calling her from upstairs. She can hear her name, but she wouldn't stop what she was doing unless I touched her and then called her name, because she wasn't hearing it until I touched her and broke her focus. So it's not that we can't focus, and that can be really frustrating for other people, because they're like, well, you can focus when you want to. Yes, that's a part of the challenge. I can focus when I want to. Clearly, I don't want to focus on that. It's not just a defiance. It's, if we're just being honest, I don't like doing that, so it's going to be hard for me to do it. And so in my adult life, I'm just honest with people about that. I am not an administrator. I don't like admin work. The only class I ever failed in my life was a typing class, because it didn't make sense to me. There was no reason for it. Why shouldn't I look at the keys? The letters are on the keys. The letters are right there. You mean don't look at the keys? They're right there. So she put me on a typewriter with no letters on the keys. They were blank. I just
shoot me now.
I've just never, right? I've never been good at administration. And that was the one bad grade. And I went home to tell my mom, I'm going to get an F in this, but it doesn't matter, because I'm never going to be anybody's secretary. I'll never type for a living. Who knew? Technology would require us to do everything with a keyboard. So everything has a keyboard now. But that was something I knew I didn't like, and I haven't ever since I was a child. I've just never liked the administrative process, doing the paperwork for school and financial aid paperwork and any school paperwork my kids had. I tell my students now, do not give me your homework printed out on paper. You need to upload it. I will lose your homework. For sure. So don't give it to me. I don't want to be responsible for other people's homework.
Very good. Well, so ADHD, it's a superpower if you harness it.
It is a superpower. Use your power for good, not evil. It is a superpower. And If you have ADHD or you have a loved one who has ADHD, it can be really frustrating. There is a website that can be really helpful that has a lot of information. It is attitudemag.com, ADDITUDEMAG.com.
Perfect.
And, they're not sponsoring us or anything yet, but still, we want you guys to have that resource. So there's no connection. But I just know that it is a very helpful resource, and I use it often. So awesome.
We will put that I'll put it on the screen, and we'll also put it a link down in the comments and in the description of the video underneath this, as well as maybe some other resources we can gather together on that. So if you have ADHD, own it. Know that know that you can do absolutely phenomenal things, and it is not a disease or an illness. It is just the way your brain works. Yes.
Well said, Sid. Yes.
And it's fine. And it's fine. If you know it, and then you can know the mechanisms, whatever it is. Everything we've said here is what works for us, what works for Jacqui. There's going to be a mix mash of that will work. And so
give yourself a chance to figure out what you need.
Yeah. Awesome. And you matter. And tell somebody that they matter.
And today. You matter.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jacqui. All right.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you guys next time.